Well, today we are so thrilled because we are going to be interviewing this wonderful rabbi with us, Rabbi Wayne Dosick, who is the author of several books, and his new book is called Radical Loving: One God, One World, One People. And he has done tremendous work besides all of his books. And I want you to just tell us a little bit about your background so that you could tell us what's most important for you.
Well, thanks, and thanks for having me. By the way, my last name is pronounced Dosick, but you can imagine what I answered to in high school gym classes. I answered to just about everything, so perfectly fine. I grew up in the old South Side of Chicago, so I'm an old South Side boy, which was really a very interesting place to grow up because it was a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-religious neighborhood.
Yes.
On my one block, we had Jews and Protestants and Catholics and Polish Catholics. It was really a fascinating place, and it gave me not only a good Jewish background but a good ecumenical background as well, which I played out much later in my life. When one of the things that I've done in my career is I taught for 17 years at the University of San Diego, which is a private Catholic diocesan university, and I taught the only courses in Jewish studies at the Catholic University. And with the Monsignor, who was the vice president of mission and ministry, we created an all faith service for the first Friday of the second semester, where we had Jews and Protestants and Catholics and Buddhists and Hindus and Native Americans on the pulpit of the Immaculata,
Wow.
praying in our own languages. Um, and I was once invited to preach on the pulpit of the Immaculata. This is not bad for a kid who in the old days got beaten up by the Catholic kids who had learned from their priests and nuns that I, Wayne Dosick, had personally killed their Lord.
Yes.
So it was yeah. So my rabbinic career, actually, this coming June will be the 50th anniversary of my ordination. And
Wow.
so,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's been a long and arduous and yet incredibly um, enriching and satisfying career. I've been in San Diego for the last 47 of those 50 years, and large conservative congregations, where I came to one and helped build a building, and then I founded another one further north. And for the last 30 years, we've had an independent prayer group, my wife and I, where we have explored reemerging Jewish spirituality. And so I've done that, and I've written now 10 books and go around the country talking about them, at least when I could go around the country before COVID. And I wrote a regular newspaper column, and so I've had a very eclectic and as I say, a very satisfying rabbinic career.
And an evolutionary career, too. You probably have really transformed through all those years. And right? Wouldn't you
I
say?
did. I was a very early pioneer in Jewish video. So back in the early 80s, 81, I think it was, we created what was called the Video Synagogue, which was, now, of course, you can just push a button on your computer and you can be at any
Right.
synagogue or church in the world. But then that
Right.
was impossible. So we created a videotape when video was in its infancy that we put into hospitals and nursing homes wherever Jews couldn't go to synagogue. We brought synagogue to them. And some of the places that we went didn't even have video equipment yet. It was really absolutely amazing. And then I've had a radio show, an interview radio show for the last 13 years on, I'll give it a plug, healthylife.net on the internet. And I, like you, I interview very fascinating guests, authors and entertainers and the creative thinkers. And so it's been really a great fun career as well.
Good ride.
Good ride.
So, yeah. So tell us about this new book that you wrote and why did you write it?
Well, the new book I wrote because I was actually brokenhearted at what I was seeing in our world and our country. Here, this wonderful world in which we grew up in our youth was becoming toxic and uncivil with bigotry and hatred and discrimination and white supremacy and neo-Nazis and ad hominem personal attacks and a political system that just doesn't work anymore. And I said to myself, we can do better. We can do
Mhm.
better if we begin to understand that we are each and every one of us children of the same God.
Yes.
And the theme song of the world seemed to me to be, my God's better than your God.
Right.
And if
Right.
you don't think so, I'll prove it to you and I'll try to convince you. And if I can't convince you, I'll terrorize you. And if I can't terrorize you enough, I'll kill you. Well,
Right.
that's no way to live. And
No.
so there is so much great about humankind and about this world that I wanted to write an inspirational book to say that we can get along with each other, that we can understand each other, that we are striving for, and this is the underlying key, oneness consciousness. There
Right.
is one God, we are one people, we live in one world, and we are all interconnected with each other. So,
Yes.
just for example, if you throw a plastic bottle into the ocean in Seattle,
Hmm.
it'll wind up in the belly of a whale in Mexico.
Yeah.
Or if you send too much smoke out of your smokestack in Pittsburgh, people will be breathing the air in Paris.
Yeah.
It's all the same world, and we have to move away from this selfishness and this singularity and move into this oneness consciousness, one God, one world, one people.
Right. No, I love it. And, people seem to think that they're separate, but we are really so interdependent upon each other as well. And I thought about when I was like in college and they were saying we are the world. That's when they were singing that song, and
Right.
peace and love, that my generation, which I think you might be about that generation. And I
Yeah.
went to
From
the
our
university.
previous conversation, I'm 1 year older than you. That's all.
Okay, so we're the same generation. And I went to the University of Wisconsin as an undergrad. And that
On Wisconsin. Da, da, da,
Yeah,
da,
yeah,
da.
but that was, that was the Berkeley of the Midwest. and
Right.
and we were all talking about oneness, and we were talking about, saving the world and stopping the war and all that stuff. So that was, our generation. Now this new generation, I maybe the newest generation is different, but I think they've kind of gotten away from that. You talk about it in your book too, about, everybody's on their iPhones and everything else like that. We're just disconnected, even though we're more connected when, especially after we just went through our pandemic, but we really are, you know, disparate from each other in so many ways.
Right. Well, you and I probably spent our youth on pro-civil rights work and anti-war work,
Yeah.
and all the things that we thought we achieved are being taken away right now by radical, not good radical, but radical um, government. So that, I mean, how do you take away someone's voting rights?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
fought for voting rights. We died for
Yeah.
voting rights. How do you
And
take
women's rights, the
and
same
women's
thing.
rights and women's rights and the rights of all human beings to be?
And the right to
And
marry who you love, all of
exactly
those things.
all of those things. And
Yeah.
so this is the kind of world that I saw that was becoming so toxic and so uh, at odds with each other. That
Chaotic. Chaotic.
That's a very good word. Absolutely chaotic. You
So
say the
isn't it
word.
true? And you being a spiritual man, and knowing what you wrote and having read your book, I mean, isn't there also something about out of chaos comes a new order?
Well,
You
we hope
know,
so. We hope so,
that's
because
that's
we
my
can't live like
hope.
this anymore. We just can't live like this anymore. And
No.
so we have to create the new order. So we are actually on the precipice of a brave new world. And we either move into that brave new world, that world of oneness, or God forbid, but we crash this world in which we are living now. You
Right,
talk about
right.
disconnection. My wife Ellen and I were in a restaurant not long ago, and there was a family of five, a mother, a father, three kids, and they were all on their cell phones. Each one was
Not
on
talking to
their
each
cell
other.
phone, not talking, not a word. They looked up to order, and then they went back to their cell phones, and they ate without any conversation. Can you imagine being in a restaurant with your parents in our generation and not talking and not comparing what you just did on this trip? You
Yeah,
would say, going to Disneyland and what ride you rode on, or what
yeah,
the movie was about, or what
right.
historical site you had just seen. We're disconnected from our own children.
I know.
We can't do that.
And you see young lovers doing the same thing. They're sitting out at a restaurant and they're both on their cell phone. Same kind of
Amazing.
thing. Are they connecting? Where are they connecting? I think there's a hunger to connect, but they're connecting through their devices
Right.
instead of from heart to heart in person.
And
And
so in the book, in Radical Loving, I make some suggestions
you do.
how we can be and serve each other. So, for example, I talk about a theory which I made up, it was just called FANAMI, find a need and meet it. We
Yeah.
are obligated as human beings to take care of each other, not to be in our own little cocoons, but to be citizens of the world, citizens of the universe, children of God. And so, my we're created, each one of us is created in the image of God, not the physical image, of course, but the spiritual image.
Right, right.
And so if I look into the mirror, I see not only my own face, but I see the face of God. And if I look into your face, I see the face of God. And if I see the face of God in you, there's only one possible response, and that is love.
Right.
Love, 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 love and compassion and kindness and goodness and decency and dignity and humanity and humaneness. And therefore, I have a responsibility to be with you in this world. So FANAMI, find the need and meet it. Years ago, 1996, our house burned down in a Southern California wildfire. We
Oh
lost,
my God.
we lost our house and everything in it,
Oh,
all our everything. So one of the finest, sweetest, kindest, and wealthiest men I knew came to me and said, Rabbi, I feel so terrible. What's mine is yours. Ask me for anything.
oh,
Well, what was I going to do? Ask him to say, buy me dinner, buy me a suit, build me
right,
a
right,
house. What was I going to say?
right.
So I wound up saying nothing. Now, in the end, he was very generous with us on his own initiative. But find a need and meet it. So, for example, God forbid someone dies and you want to help the mourner, the one who's in grief. And you go and say, anything you need, just call me. Call me. I'm always available for you. And anytime,
Yeah,
day or
you
night.
got to
You know
reach
what?
out.
No one will ever call.
No.
So what you do is you say, hey, I understand your Uncle Charlie's coming in for the funeral. Give me his airplane information. I'll go down to the airport and pick him up. You don't have to
Right,
bother.
right.
Or maybe your best suit is at the cleaners. Give me the ticket. I'll go pick it up for you. Or don't worry about the kids. I'll take them out for pizza and a movie tonight.
Yeah.
That's finding a need and meeting it. At the same time, when we everybody makes up Thanksgiving baskets, the church, the synagogue, the social
Right,
service
right,
agency. And what do? We give a turkey and we give stuffing and we give cranberries
right,
well, anybody who needs a turkey and cranberries also would love to have a joyous and cheerful holiday. So
right.
put into that basket a bottle of sparkling apple cider, a nicely decorated cake, a bag of colorful jelly beans, because everybody wants to be able to celebrate at the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. Or invite somebody over. It's interesting that you just said about a fire because just this week in my community here in Apollo Beach, and we have a small community. It's a gate guarded community that everybody's on Facebook, and everybody just went crazy. One of the houses was hit by lightning. I live in
Oh,
the lightning capital of the world. And the
Hmm.
people were out of town. So it was smoldering, I guess, in the attic, but no one knew. And then it blew up and the
Huh.
house is entirely gone. Everybody in the community has said, gone on Facebook and said, what can we do? What can we do? And it touched my heart. I also was one of them. And they said, well, down at the clubhouse, they're going to collect gift cards to whatever. So that's what we're all doing, because we don't know what they want, and they're gonna need everything. So everybody's just gonna give gift cards to the grocery store or to Macy's or to whatever, or just cash gift cards to
Well,
help. So,
that's beautiful.
it just reminded me of that when you just told me about your fire. It's horrible,
That's absolutely
so.
beautiful. When our house burned down, I was teaching at the University of San Diego then. The Sunday night student mass, they said in our honor, and they collected the collection basket. The kids, just the
Oh.
kids, came to the thing and gave us uh, that collection. The president of the university himself wrote us a check and said,
Oh,
"Here, I feel so terrible for you."
yeah.
Whatever. So that's
And not only, yeah, and it's not only the
it's
one
not
who
only fun.
receives it,
Right.
right? It's the
Right.
one who gives. Like when I can give, I had a friend that I met that's actually from Orange County that moved on my block here, 3,000 miles away. And, he was sick and I brought dinner over, it made me feel good
Right.
just to bring dinner over. And he has to have another surgery. And I thought to myself, I'm going to cook tomorrow and bring dinner over there so they don't have to think about it. But that's giving of your heart, right? Giving of your heart. And obviously there are different religions and we're going beyond that. So
And
that's,
God moves us to do that. So if we listen to the heed, to the call of the one God who
yeah,
says, I created you all. You're
yes,
all my children.
yes,
I don't play any favorites. I love all my children equally. And I hope you will love me because I love you. And I hope that you will learn to love each other because you are all my children and I love you all. And I
yes,
don't play favorites. And you may call me whatever you want. You
right.
may come to me in whatever way you wish. And
Yeah,
we know, different religions, some are quiet and meditative, some are joyous and ecstatic, and everything in between. And we all build the bridges. One of my closest and dearest friends at the university is a Jesuit priest who's now moved back to his province in Milwaukee. He's 90 something years old now.
God bless them.
And he doesn't want me to become Catholic, and I don't want him to become Jewish. We
Right.
respect and love each other's traditions. And yet, there's far, far, far more that unites us than divides us because we are all children of God.
Yes, yes. So the name of your book is Radical Loving. So what do you mean by radical loving?
Well, radical loving is not just a Hallmark card or to say to you, hey, Maria, I'm having a great time here. I love being with you.
Yeah.
It is recognizing that there is that one God. It is recognizing that all of us are children of that one God. It is acting on that. It is saying, I understand the here-ness, the presentness of God, and I understand my responsibility to be part of a community that is united in our belief in that one God and acts on that belief to be obligated and responsible one person for another. In
Yeah.
the very, very beginning of the Bible, when Cain kills Abel,
Mm-hmm.
and God says to him, what'd you do? I mean, and Cain's Abel, in defense of Cain, he didn't know what death was. He hardly knew what life was. He was just plunked
Yeah.
down here. But he says in Hebrew, Hashamer Achi Anochi, am I my brother's guardian?
Mm.
He's asking actually, is my God self, the God within me, responsible for anything other than myself, my own ego, my own personal
Mm.
choices?
Mm.
And the answer is yes, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And that's the that's the theme of the world. We are here, again, in the words of another Hebrew prayer, to litaken olam, to fix the world, to repair it, to balance it, to heal it, to transform it, to perfect it, as partners with God in making this world a better place. You know, the story says, if God knew we were going to eat bread, why didn't God just have loaves of Wonder Bread with those little yellow and blue and
Red.
red
Yeah.
dots on them? Why don't we just have Wonder Bread growing up out of the ground?
Yeah.
No, that's the partnership.
Yeah.
God provides the raw materials, the resources, and we take those resources and we make them into something. And so that's the partnership. And it's a partnership that goes across the board, not just with making bread, but with healing and repairing the brokenness of the world and the brokenness of other human souls.
Right. You talk about, and also Mother Teresa would talk about that. When I look at you, I see the face of God. When you look at me, you see the face of God. And I remember there was a saying by Mother Teresa. They'd say, how can you work with these people who are filthy and they're homeless and they're this? And she goes, every day I get to work with the face of, with God. Each one of them, I see the face of God.
Right.
So we are to be God, right? And I don't mean like I'm God, but I am God incarnate to do God's work, right? Isn't that really what we're supposed to be doing? Instead of talking about God like so many and you don't seem to do that. You talk about really what it means, the relationship with God, but you hear people talk about religion as if theirs is the right one and they're proselytizing or they're promoting their own view of what should be done. And they're not being God. They're not acting. They're not fulfilling the godlike nature that they're supposed to be, right?
Well, if I can put it in sort of theological terms, God is one, but part of God is the transcendent God. That is the God who creates and recreates ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't do that. There's a great story about the scientist who came to God and said, God, we've come to say goodbye to you. Really? Why? Well, the one thing that you could do that we can't do is create human beings out of nothing. But we scientists have figured out how to do it. So
Yeah.
God says, that's fantastic. Show me, please. So the scientist reaches down and picks up a clump of earth and starts molding it and shaping it. And God says, use your own dirt.
It's cute.
So there's the transcendent God. There's also the God within us, which is we call the immanent God, the God within. We are not God, but God is within us. And so we have to tap into our God-like qualities to be like God, who is compassionate and kind and loving and loves every human being. So we do God's work on earth.
We express God.
We express God. We're God's hands and heart on earth.
Yeah, it reminds me of the ocean, that God is the ocean and each of us are a drop of that ocean,
Beautiful.
right?
Beautiful.
And that's how I think of what I'm supposed to be doing, in terms of God. So you talk about one God, one world, one people. So how, you also talk about people, they might be in temple or they might be at church and they're really connected. They really feel connected. Then they go on the freeway and they're ready to kill somebody. So this is the thing about what's going on in our brain. People get into fear, they get into competition, they get into anger, they get into frustration, and then they lose that God quality, right? That's how they lose that God quality, when they let the ego and everything else take over. What do we do about that?
They lose seeing the face of God in another. You're right about the freeway. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing in the bank, when the line is very long and the teller is taking forever, and you say, what is with this person? How come she behaves like this? Or you go into a convenience store and the teenage clerk can't make change for $1 bill without using his little computer. And you say, what is with this kid? But we have to work to remember that each one of those people is a reflection of the face of God, just like you are a reflection of the face of God when you look in the mirror. And so if you try to remember that all the time, then standing in line at the bank or seeing that clerk in the convenience store getting cut off in traffic, you say, it's a child of God. It's a child of the universe. There must be something wrong today. There must be something isn't having a good day, or the poor clerk doesn't know how to do a particular procedure. So if we remember that each person is a child of God, and I'll tell you, it's not easy. I stand in line at the bank and I say, come on, girl, come on, let's go. And right.
And it gets worse when other things go on, when you feel betrayed, right? When you feel betrayed, or when someone you love is hurt by someone else. And, you talk a little bit, but not much, about Israel and their neighbors and what's going on there. That, that hatred of each other, and that, that misunderstanding of each other, that they're the same. I remember when I went to Morocco a couple of times, they're very proud of the fact in Morocco that the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians can all live together, and respect each other. So what about, it's bigger than that in countries that are hateful toward each other, like the Middle East.
Ellen and I just came back from 5 weeks in Israel. We go as often as we can. It's the place of our hearts and the place of our hearts. And I don't want to defend or seem to be partisan here, but most Israelis, and I believe most Palestinians, simply want peace.
Right.
They want to live with each other, and they want their children to grow up in a decent place. They want to make a living. They want to have an education. They want to have a good life.
Right.
There are two different narratives, and it's way, way too difficult to go into that now. There are, yes, some Israelis who hate the Arabs, but there are far more Arabs who hate the Israelis. And that's because of different narratives. And if we just learn to not hate each other and to be able to talk to each other, after all, we're cousins. We're children of Jacob and Esau, of Isaac and Jacob, of Esau. And why fight with each other? There's plenty of place for everybody. There's plenty of work for everybody. There's plenty of economics for everybody. It is said of both the Palestinians and even of the Israelis that they never take an opportunity to say, they never take the opportunity to say yes. It's always no. Mm-hmm. But you see, when people can get along, we have a peace treaty with Jordan. We have a peace treaty with Egypt. On the other hand, we gave back all of Gaza. We dug up the graves of our children and moved them out of Gaza. And Gaza could have become the resort town, the resort city of the entire Mediterranean. It's gorgeous, right on the sea. And the world sent concrete to build hotels. And instead of building hotels, they built tunnels to come in and try to invade Israel. You have to have a mindset. And the mindset has to be, we are all children of the same God. And there's plenty of place for all of us. And there's plenty of place for economic gain, for education, for work, for peace.
Yeah. And I think what's so hard, no matter who it is, when we're little kids and we're taught they're bad, or they're the wrong color, or they're the wrong religion, or they're this, this gets to be a program in our brain. And we have to rewrite the program.
Well, we can't. You see, as I said earlier, when I was a little kid, I got beaten up by the kids who went to Catholic school. And
Right.
then in high school, I remember this very distinctly. In the middle of high school, I went to one of those high schools that looked like a prison, you know, the 5 floors of red brick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had 4 minutes to pass between classes. If you had to go from the first floor to the 5th floor, it wasn't easy. And this girl stops me on the stairway and says, Wayne, 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 I forgive you. I forgive you. Now, there were probably some girls in that high school who needed to forgive me for something, but she was, I said, Bonnie,
She
what
didn't
is
know you.
it? No, I said, Bonnie, what is it? She said, I forgive you for killing Christ. I said, what are you talking about? Well, I didn't kill Christ. That was 2,000 years ago. And I wasn't there and I didn't know him. One of our Jewish boys who made good, but I didn't know him. And besides that, it wasn't the Jews who killed Christ. It was the Romans. So she said, no, I just heard on my little transistor radio, remember those?
Oh,
That the Pope said we could forgive the Jews for killing Christ. Well, that was
oh,
Vatican II and Pope John the 23rd. And so in 50 years, just 50 years, we went from being beaten up to being a rabbi on the faculty of a Catholic university who preached from the pulpit of the Immaculata. Change can happen.
yeah,
You just have to
evolution.
want it to happen.
Yeah, yeah, it can happen. And that's really the optimism that we all need. We all need to find ways to, I think we need to teach in our schools. And even if the parents aren't teaching them, we need to teach about how we're all one. But I don't know if the schools will allow that. Right now, they don't even want to have Anne Frank books in their schools.
Right.
So
So it's the Sanskrit word namaste. The God in me acknowledges and sees and acknowledges the God in you. It's so simple. All we have to do is learn it. You know, no child is born hating. No child is born discriminating.
no,
No child is born with bigotry. It's a taught behavior.
it is.
And if we can teach our children hatred and bigotry, God forbid, we certainly can teach them love and understanding and cooperation and compassion.
Right.
And so it is an educational movement for parents as much as it is for the little children. And so parents need to be parents again and take care of their kids and be with their kids and check homework and go and meet the teacher and read to your children, sing to your children in utero.
Yeah.
And pray or meditate or be silent with your children. Do all kinds of things that boost them up and give them love and compassion and hope, and not tear them down by teaching them hatred and bigotry.
Right. And we had an interfaith group of ministers and rabbis in Orange County, and they met. And it seems to me, if they are really the educators of the parents when they come to church or they go to the synagogue, that is also where you can like reteach all of those craziness that you learn when you're a child, that Jews are bad or whatever. It seems to me that kind of interfaith leadership, like your friend, that you've had a friend for years who's, what'd you say, Protestant, and the Catholic diocese was,
Yeah.
it just seems to me that the leadership of these different religions, they have to reteach and enlighten their congregations.
Right. And I'm sure that I know some of those rabbis in Orange County who were in that interfaith group. And the fact that there are interfaith groups.
I know, that's beautiful.
Stunning just in itself. Wouldn't have happened 50 years ago, I don't think.
Right.
So
so I agree with you about the parents, but I think,
Yeah.
you've got this beautiful book, and, I would encourage you to get interfaith people to join with you in that message of,
Well, anywhere. I tell this to the world now. Anywhere that people would like me to come and speak and to talk to them about these things, I am ready to go. I'm ready to go anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world.
but I mean, actually form like an association of all these different ministers, rabbis, cantors, priests, whatever, to do that, because they're the ones that are going to be enlightening or not enlightening their congregations. And I know from moving to Florida, there are people that really do attend church here and they have their Bible studies. I'm kind of in the Bible Belt, which is kind of an interesting change for me. But it seems to me that, you know, using your book for book study is wonderful. But I think just having all of the leaders of the various religions together saying we are one. That's what I like
it's a
to
one-to-one
see.
relationship. And if anybody knows the Pope, I'll be glad to go to Rome to visit with the Pope. The old funny story is that it's not true, but I just tell you that I went to see the Pope and we stood out on the balcony and somebody said, "Who's the guy in the white suit next to Rabbi Dosick?" It didn't happen, but you know, maybe one day.
Right, right. Well,
So
I
yeah.
want to thank you. I want to have everybody have a chance to get your book, whether it's online or in bookstores or wherever it is. And it is I read it. I finished reading it today. A beautiful book. So, Rabbi Wayne Dosick.
Here it is. Radical Loving.
Radical Loving.
And if you'd like to know more about it, the website is radicallovingbook.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Wayne. You're doing good work in the world. And I think this book is really beautiful and I enjoyed it. And I hope that my audience will also enjoy it. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me.
Okay, bye-bye.